How a broken bone revealed how entitled my ex-friend was. This took place around 9 years ago. I only remember the timeline because it was the year my youngest nephew was born. I became friends with this girl, M, around the time my job had finished rebuilding for a long overdue renovation. When the store reopened, that was when we met and became friends. We were friends for maybe roughly a year, if not a little longer than that. Some of my family that met her didn't really like her from the get-go. Though, I was blind to it, as I try to see the good in people, as sad as that is. But, over time I had started to notice a few things. Such as when she had broken her arm, she couldn't do some things due to the kind of cast that she had, which wasn't waterproof, so it made it hard for her to do dishes. So, I had offered to help with her dishes. Though the day I was supposed to come over, I was called into work and I needed the money. So, I thought that she'd be asleep still, so I'd go over after my shift, so I went to work and didn't call. Now, I started, and still think I should have said something, and I felt bad. But what made it worse was that after that, I moaned about it to coworkers all day. It had started to cause stress in me to build up as well as guilt, and 2 of my cousins came in that day. We're about the same age, so we get along. They asked me how I'm doing, and they noticed how quiet I was. When they saw that, they asked if I was okay. I had just shrugged and they knew something was wrong. Asked again, and that was when I broke down in tears. Pulled me aside and asked me what happened, and I had told them everything. They said that it was a jerk thing to even keep bringing it up to work of my friend. When she saw I was in tears, she apologized and said that she knows I couldn't stay mad at her long or something along those lines. I don't remember it. After that, I thought that maybe things were okay again, though it seemed that it wasn't as I had thought. Another thing, she was dating my best friend from high school, well, my best guy friend. One day, he and I ran into each other and chatted for a bit. Jay let me know that he was going to break up with her. Didn't go into detail about why, and just wanted to give me a heads up. He also asked me not to say anything to her, which I agreed, as it wasn't my place anyway to say anything to her like that. So, I had kept it to myself and didn't say anything that would indicate that they were going to last or not last, if that makes sense. Well, he didn't do it right away because of circumstances, such as her grandparent passing away, as my friend didn't want to do anything that would only worsen her pain. So, in September, M video called me, and she was just downright in tears. I don't recall everything that was said, or what she said before I ended up saying this. I kind of knew that Jay was going to break up with you for a while. Moment I said that, she glared at me and hung up. I felt guilt over that and gave her space for the time being. After that, I went to bed as it was late at night, and I was exhausted both mentally and physically. When morning came, I got up, got ready, and was going out to hand out resumes, as I wanted to get out of my job for a few reasons. One was due to lack of scheduled hours, how I was treated sometimes, etc. Well, before I left my brother's home, was living with him here when I worked, and back at mom's and our stepdad's home in the country when I didn't work because I lost my apartment. That is another story. I was asked if I could come into work for a shift. I declined because I wanted to do this when I could. Plus, I didn't think I could mentally handle too many people after the night before. After that, I went out to hand out resumes to places where I knew they were hiring. As I did, I saw him at a McDonald's and frowned. So, I texted her if she was still mad at me and left it at that. After that, I started to bike past a Tim Hortons to make my way to a pet store. Love animals. Helped with an animal rescue for years. Well, there was a big line in the drive-thru, and as I'm biking past, a car is coming out, and we didn't see each other due to a truck that was in the line. It had one of those big dome things on the truck bed, so we didn't see each other. Thankfully, he wasn't going fast or anything when leaving, but well, he hit the back tire of my bike, which knocked me down. I fell on the ground, landing on my left arm, and my leg was caught in the frame of the bike. While I'm on the ground, I'm just kind of blinking, going like, what the FCK just happened? Though, I just kind of laugh, as that is one of my coping mechanisms with pain, or at least with what little pain I was feeling at the time. People came out to check up on me to make sure I was okay. I just asked if someone could get my bike off of me so I could try to get up. They do. So I try to move, as I didn't feel anything in my back that would indicate pain or anything like that. I've fallen on my shoulder before from riding my bike. going faster than I was, and only hurt my shoulder a bit. Though, as I tried to push myself up, I fell back down. I'm just like, what the hell? I look up at those around me and asked if I could have help. My arm couldn't support my weight. I get help up, moved over so I'm no longer impeding traffic, which I didn't mind. I didn't want to block anyone anyway. Anyway, an ambulance is called for me. I'm just sitting and relaxing, and with how I couldn't move my arm from its bent position, I'm thinking, I think I broke my arm. The guy is apologizing over and over again for hitting me, and I'm just like, it's okay. We didn't see each other. A worker came out and asked if I was okay, and I said yeah. I'm just waiting for an ambulance at that point. Then they asked me for my information since I was hurt on their property. So I'm thinking fair, and do so. Then they asked me if I wanted them to hold on to my bike for me, and I asked if it isn't too much trouble. I'll ask my uncle to come get it for me. They take my bike for me and put it where it would be safe. Well, I get taken to the hospital after that. Well, after I spoke to the police as well, since where I live you can't bike on the sidewalk with tires the size I had. So that was fun. Anyway, once I get to the hospital, I'm in the waiting room debating on calling my mom or not. Pros, she won't kick my ass. Cons, she'll kick my ass. So, I called and asked my mom if she was still visiting my brother. She was and asked why. I still remember the convo. Hey mom, you still in town? Yeah, why? I'm at the hospital. What? Why? I was hit by a car. How did you get there? Ambulance. I'm on my way. So, after being in the waiting room for hours, among hours, I think I got there around noon? 1. I got out after 6 and didn't have my pain meds yet. Went to my job to let them know I'll have to be off for a bit till I get my cast. Had broken both bones in my left elbow. So, once that was done, we went to my brother's place just to rest for a bit, and that was when I got a reply back from my friend. Texted that she was still mad at me for hiding that I knew about my friend breaking up with her beforehand. I don't remember all of what she texted, but I had asked her if she could chew me out later, that I was hit by a car and broke my arm. Well, she just kept going on and on. I'm getting fed up, glare at my phone and send this. It's not verbatim, but it's close. Look, I get that you're mad at me, but I was hit by a f***ing car. Just got out of the hospital after being in there for longer than 5 hours, and I don't have anything for my f***ing pain. Just damn it. After that, I shut my phone off, I think, and just relaxed. Got my meds filled out, and then went to my parents' place in the country. Though, while I was off work, my friend was mouthing about me to coworkers both inside and outside of work. Even to the bus driver, who knew my mom, aunt, and uncle as her own kid used to play with them when they were kids. The bus driver told her to shut the FCK up. I only found that out because a coworker who I've known since I started let me know, telling me that she had even asked our manager to keep an eye out for her because of what she was saying, such as calling me a fat pig and the like. After my first shift back, she pretty much ignored me, which I didn't mind. I was still in pain, and the cast I had was pretty heavy as it went from my hand, past my elbow up my bicep. When my shift was done and I was in the car with my mom and heading back home, called me and started to go on a spiel. I can't remember it, but just her saying that she was upset and that I should have said something. I had her on speakerphone, so Mom heard everything and got fed up. Mom told her off, saying that it wasn't my business to tell her in the first place. Plus, it was most likely that she wouldn't have believed me anyway. Also that she knows that she was talking bullshit about me behind my back to coworkers and anyone that she could who wasn't even involved in our problems. Then said that if she did anything to my cat, that there would be hell to pay. She was looking after my cat for me because my stepdad was allergic to cats, and he was kind of in the mindset that animals didn't belong inside the house. He was a farmer, so that was how he was raised. After I got home, texted me saying how could I think that she would hurt my cat among other things. Then, she said if I didn't get my cat that weekend, she was putting her in the shelter. Of course, I'm freaking out and panicking to the point of going into a panic attack. I found my cat. I've had her since 2014, and she is pretty much my child, and still is. So, I'm calling my friend, Jay, begging him to get my cat for me because of what I told. He said that he'd get her for me, and not to worry. I thank him for it and trying to calm down. Though, she had also called the cops on my mom because, I won't lie, Mom did kind of threaten her. It was only because when I called her, with Mom's phone as I was paying for minutes and was low, I don't remember again what was said. I was in hysterics, I think, by that point. Mom threatened her that if anything happened to my cat, she would find a way into the apartment building, that she knows people there, and would rip her face off and glue it to the cheek of her back. Yeah, cops got called. But when Mom explained everything, he didn't give a warning, understood, and said that if any other call was made to us, then to let him know. Even asked later if I got my cat to a safe location, which I did. Though M told Jay that I owed her $10 because of my cat's water dish as per agreement, which I said I'd pay only if her power bill went up, as the cat's water dish was electric. When I found that out, I went to him and gave him 20 for the 10 he lost, but also for picking up my cat. He also loved my cat while looking after her, called her his little copiole as she would lay on his bed when he gamed. After that, Mom and I were getting texts from unknown numbers, which I knew was her, as she had used an app on her phone before to text me with unknown numbers and the like. Sadly, I couldn't prove it was M since again, the app hid her number by giving a different one. I was getting sickened with those texts, so when I got a new phone, I changed my number in the process. Mom had also changed her number as well. But wait, there's more. Long after that, I got my cast off, finished physio, and was just having a normal shift at work. I was front-running, pretty much getting orders on trays or in bags. Well, who walks in? Yup, my M along with her new friend. They're also not friends anymore. They had a fight that resulted in her wanting to ditch the friend in the country. On the side of the road, at night, M got punched in the face afterwards for getting in her new friend's face constantly while yelling at her. This happened maybe a couple years later? I don't remember when. Well, she sees me and I don't really say anything to her. I just tray her and her friend's food and say the name and go back to my tasks. When she sits down, she's crying and on the phone with Jay, who only really talked to her when he wanted rides to get smokes. He wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole, haha. Anyway, she's crying that I was giving her a dirty and angry look. She was glaring at me and I don't know why. His answer? Well, you were talking SHD about her behind her back and threatened to put her cat in a shelter months after she was backstabbed by her friend from high school as she lost her apartment. She could only say, oh, right? Yeah, and another thing? The friend. See that while I had been backstabbed, he did apologize, got his life back together, and we're kind of talking again while he told me something interesting. Turns out, M had been thinking of putting my cat in a shelter for a little while before our fight. When he heard that, he just said, I may not be talking to Opie or like her right now, but I won't stand by or be near someone who would do that to someone that is supposed to be their friend. Also, my friend Jay had told me that M had been jealous of our relationship, despite the fact that Jay and I were like siblings, known each other since high school, and we had no romantic feelings toward the other. But she was trying to ruin our relationship through means that I don't know or remember at this point. Years after that, she messaged Jay and asked him if he'd ask me if I would ever meet with her so she could apologize to me. He felt bad for even asking me that, thinking he betrayed me in some way. I said, just told him, dude, it would have only been betraying me if you gave her my new number, which he thought it over and agreed with me on that. Never met with him. I'm just thinking, nope. You threatened my cat, talked SHD about me at work, told your friend that I was the reason why you lost your job? FCK that. You can feel guilt for it for all I care. Yeah, she quit working because I told the GM what was happening. She took away M shifts, but what I said was just the final straw. Because she was always calling in, always complaining about being sore while working, always wanting to go home ECT. Even when she had a broken arm, I could get she didn't want to work, but still, I worked with my arm in a cast for my left arm when I'm left-handed and I still worked. I didn't complain to go home, didn't whine about pain or nothing, just came up with ways/methods to get through the shift till I could get home. So yeah, the GM took away her shifts, which made her quit. I wasn't the main reason, but just the straw that broke the camel's back. TLDR, got hit by a car, broke both bones in my elbow, Ex-friend was upset with me because I knew her BF, my friend, was going to break up with her and didn't say anything till after. Mouthed at me about not saying anything, and me asking her to mouth later after being hit. Complained to other people not involved inside and outside work and threatened to put my cat in a shelter. She called cops on my mom who threatened her, changed my number, and wouldn't let her apologies to me years later. Now to the next story, story 2. Dan returned my camper and XSIL got a DUI. But I've also got a copycat that has made my family upset all over again. To start this off, I came back after all this time to find 500 messages in my inbox and 130 unanswered PMs. Please don't PM me anymore. There's just too many to answer. So if you PM'd me and I clicked ignore, I'm sorry. Just know that's why. It was not personal. I just felt too overwhelmed to reply to so many. But that's not what brought me back to Reddit. I decided to stay away at least a year because my posts were not exactly boosting family morale. So I didn't log in for quite some time. But then the other day my brother Dan spotted a video with an unbelievably similar to mine in far too many ways. Only it was about an OP with a twin sister instead of a SIL. But it had so much of the same. Entitled Narcissistic Parents, guy treated like SHD all his life and then rendered homeless, golden child sibling, keeping the favoritism a closely guarded secret from family while the OP was growing up. Sister still in her 20s has 3 kids and was pregnant with a 4th. Sister's eldest son attacks OP, and above all them trying to steal the OP's house by breaking in while he wasn't home. So many parts were nearly identical. Even 2 lines like, SCK it up, and, my house is not up for grabs, were in the video. My parents and brother are frankly pissed, and I wasn't happy seeing the video either. We've all been trying hard to get past our previous family dynamic and what XSIL put us all through. You can imagine it took a lot for me to let go of my grudges. But in a year my parents and Dan have improved more than I'd seen in my entire life before that. And I love me nibblings to pieces. So whoever wrote that copycat story, congratulations, you just sent my entire family right back into needing therapy. And yes, my family is aware I'm making this post. Now with that ran over, here's what I hope to be my final update. Now for what was stated in the title. I had a few naysayers before, but Dan kept his word. My camper was returned to me a few months ago, and in good condition. Dan took good care of it and thoroughly cleaned it before giving it back. He and our father also resealed the roof on it, once while it was in their care. Inside it's no worse for wear than it was when I was living in it. Only I got it back smelling like pine cleaner. There was some minor drama while Dan was living in my camper from a neighbor right behind them. Not quite sure she qualifies as a Karen, but she was close enough. She started yelling at them from over the fence about the camper, and started threatening police. My brother and father went off on her, and then explained Dan was living in the camper so his son could have his bedroom. Well, the neighbor still wasn't happy, but stopped with the threats. My father talked to her husband later, though, and he was bull mad at her. Then he apologized on her behalf, and said Dan was doing a good thing by giving up his room to his son. The neighbor husband also congratulated Dan on kicking out XSAL, and said he was always afraid to mention before. But she was just a horrid woman. We can all agree on that now. So yeah, the neighbors aren't a problem anymore. Dan and our father managed to get some money together on the side, and bought a slightly bigger camper to set up in our parents' backyard. We needed my truck just to move it, but we got it in there. It's basically the best Dan can do right now till the credit debts his ex piled up are paid off. And even then, he's got the future of his kids to plan for. He may be living in that camper for the next 10 years, but it's preferable to how it was when he was married. His ex-wife certainly can't and won't be contributing to college funds for the kids, except maybe for her affair baby. Dan's camper is admittedly better than mine, and it's newer, bigger, and has its own bathroom. Mine does not, although Dan never really uses said bathroom. It's basically become a closet since the toilet and shower are so tiny. If he needs to take a leak or something, he just goes in the house. Dan and I had a joking laugh about me being jealous he's got the better hobo house, and we bantered like sarcastic gentlemen about it. He's kitted out his camper with some better amenities, like a flat-screen TV complete with streaming, video games, and DVD. He said it feels like he really has his own place now, even though he's just in the backyard. And he's much happier now that he's divorced. Dan tells me one day he'll get a truck too, just so he can move the camper on his own someday. But for now, he's sticking with his minivan for the sake of his kids. So his camper is sitting pretty where it is, and mine is back in my backyard where it belongs, though it's not gone and used. I temporarily rented it to a cousin who moved into the area for work, and they were only in the camper about a month before finding their own apartment. Other than that, it serves as a guest house when needed. Relatives come by to use it when in town, so as to not need a motel. My nephew has come over to stay in it a few times for fun as well. His sisters don't really have an interest. The camper the closest he's ever been to camping. Same here, sadly, because I didn't buy that camper to camp, but to live. As for my parents, they've gotten therapy. My mother got medicated for her mental problems and fully acknowledges her terrible past mistakes as a parent with all of the favoritism, as does my father. My father is still awkward around me, but he's been fairly active in his church and is working hard to rebuild the family reputation as best he can. And Dan has cut back on drinking a lot since he isn't so stressed out anymore. He's even taken up exercising. He's in pretty good shape now, and he told me his ex-wife saw the picture of him he posted online after shedding 20 pounds and called him to compliment. He didn't take the bait. As for the holidays, my parents, brother, and nibblings all came to my Christmas Eve party last year, along with most of the other relatives who came the year prior. No problems at all, save for the fact none of them could stay the night in my spare rooms anymore since I rented them out. Both of my tenants were away seeing their own families too. Things went swimmingly. Not only was XSIL not invited, she wouldn't have been able to crash the party anyway because of my restraining order against her. But she also barely made any attempt to spend time with her other kids either. She only bothered to see them twice a month at best. She didn't even send them any gifts for Christmas or birthdays since being outed as a cheater. And the kids were initially pretty upset about that. But now they just don't care. Sil, I guess, decided she was going to try to live like she was single again, despite having a baby at home. And it didn't go well because life gave her one hell of a cheese slap. On New Year's, XSIL went out late to party like it was 1999, and she got pulled over by a cop on her way home. She got arrested for DUI, and her car was impounded. She called Dan while being arrested, begging him to come get her car to keep it from going to impound. He told her he was not helping her, and she could deal with it herself. Dan has drank and drove, so it was kind of a little hypocritical. But this woman put him through so much, I don't blame him for rebuffing her. Some flying monkey of XSILs called Dan to berate about him being a terrible person. Pretty sure this was the same woman who called me a while back. Dan had none of her SHD and went off on her with a long tirade about his ex's cheating, what happened in the divorce, and that he has no sympathy for his ex since she left him with mounds of credit card debt and she does nothing for their kids anymore. The flying monkey didn't call back. We still don't know who she was. But Dan said she sounded like a religious nut. XSIL went to court, and she pleaded guilty for the DUI. Dan found this out because she called him claiming that because of the DUI, she wouldn't be seeing her other kids anytime soon. She told him she was sentenced to take a 6-month DUI class, in which time her license is suspended until completion, and she won't be allowed to drink at all, which is the part she was most upset about. I've heard of these classes before. They make you take regular and at times random urine tests, and when you finally get your license back, you have to have a camera and breathalyzer installed in your car for a year. Also, increased insurance rates for the DUI on record. XSIL has not been having a fun time, but I have no pity for her. I don't drink and drive. Sadly, that's all the info I have on XSIL, as she's kept minimal contact with Dan for some time now. And eventually she'll probably stop contacting him altogether unless absolutely necessary. I don't know anything else about SIL's parents or her affair baby. Even Dan doesn't know, but I do still have a bit of info on someone else. Remember XSIL's affair partner, the bronze-tongued lout? Well, he made his social media public again. And he doesn't seem to acknowledge the existence of XSIL or his child at all. Dan tried to message him and promptly got an immediate block. So the guy is just being an asshole and acting like his SHD don't stink. Whatever. His knocking up XSIL got her out of the family anyway. So in a way, we're all thankful to that AP bastard. That's everything I have. And hopefully won't need to come back again. Unless my truck gets egged again next Halloween.